Hey everybody! Today Rahdo previews a prototype of On Mars, which has to be the most complex Martian colonization simulation the board game industry has ever seen. And before I get going, I strongly recommend you turn your subtitles onto the Klingon channel so that when I make rules goofs, you'll know what they are. And if you've done that, then welcome to Mars, everyone, where each player controls their own private corporation that is competing to contribute the most to the growth and prosperity of this Martian colony. Although, before we get to that, as part of setup, each player has to choose whether their colony leader is going to start out in orbit or actually on the surface. And I chose to start out in orbit, and specifically I chose this space right here because even though I had to pay a starting resource, I got to have a bonus extra colonist, which is why I'm starting with 4 colonists in my corporation rather than the normal 3. And Jen, meanwhile, started down here on the surface, and she could have chosen any of these bonuses. She chose the one that gave her a free starting blueprint for a building upgrade. And you can see over here, she chose this one that increases her ability to recruit more recruits. So Jen is going to want to try and get this thing built as soon as possible because it'll be worth victory points at the end of the game, and if she never gets this built, it'll lose her victory points. So anyway, we've started out. And not only are these indicating where we are in orbit or on the surface, this is also a turn order track. So since I'm here in slot number 4, I'm going to go before Jen, who is down on the surface in slot number 4. And so, what am I going to do? Well, up here in orbit, we have a few different options. This one is not very good. If I'm really desperate to get down to the surface and I don't want to wait for the shuttle, I could basically pass, spend my entire turn getting down to the surface. This is something you would almost never do. This, however, is a little bit more interesting. You can see there are worker placement spaces that I could send my colonists out here to, and this lets me contact Earth and get a blueprint of my own. And you can see Jen's already gotten 1 of the 6 starters, but there are still 5 more that randomly came out of this deck, although the deck is stacked with early ones on top and more complex ones later on, as you can see. So I could send a worker over here and grab one of these blueprints for myself, which would give me a goal to work on once I get down on the surface. And interestingly, if you notice here, this indicates that I have to spend a worker. I didn't have to spend a worker to do this action because it's a really terrible one. So I'm spending a worker to do it. And if I want, I can supplement that worker with extra colonists to do a better version. That's what this means. And to supplement them, I take other colonists I have. I don't put them on the worker replacement spot. Instead, I put them over here in the busy section. They're not laying around. They're being busy supplementing. And in this case, that means if I put a guy here, I'd get to do 1. But hey, if I put some other guys to work, I could get 2 or 3 blueprints if I wanted to grab a whole bunch right from the get-go. But you know what? I don't even want to get blueprints right now. I think I'm going to jump down to this second action. This one allows me to develop new technologies that will help the colony, will help me, and will help my opponent. And the reason I've eyeballed this one is because of this little objective marker right here. As part of setup, the UN has actually set goals for us. They were randomly chosen. They represent these 3 cards, and you can see there's a whole deck of them. So every time you play, you're going to get a different combination of mission goals. And in this game, one of the mission goals is to develop, in a 2-player game, 8 unique technologies. Every time somebody develops new technology, they get a bonus crystal as a reward. And if all 8 of the technologies are developed by any number of players, that will trigger one of the potential in-game parameters. To end this game, we have to do all 3 missions, which is get the techs developed, get upgraded buildings installed. I'm sorry, not upgraded buildings, that's a different one. This one is get advanced complexes built in the colony. This one over here is get more robotics. Get 3 building robots actually functioning on the surface, and that doesn't count our starting robots, which are represented by these meeples. Remember, this is a prototype. They're actually going to look like really cool little robot meeples. So we have these 3 goals, and to remember them, the game has us put, this was goal number A, I put this little A over here as a reminder, there's a mission goal related to this. So that's why I'm going for this one. I am going to actually develop a tech, and you'll notice I don't have to use a worker, unlike this space where it said I had to. So Which one do I want? Well, these were randomly put out here, and the lower they are, the cheaper they are. This one, which is oxygen generation technology, is free, as is this one, which is all about being able to more efficiently upgrade buildings. Then, if I wanted to pay one power, I could get the water, the battery, or the mineral tech. If I wanted to pay a power and something else, I could get the rover tech, the landing tech, or the food tech. I don't want to spend a bunch of extra resources. I already had to spend one to get this extra colonist right from the get-go, so I'll take one of the freebies. I will fix it so that anybody has the potential to develop more oxygen concentrators on the surface. And because we need oxygen to breathe. So I'm going to take this, and I put it over here on the leftmost side of my little tech tree. Now, everybody starts with a level 2 tech for making their own habitats so that we can house our workers on the surface. And this is already level 2, and now this one's going to come in as level 1. And I can get a bonus. I can get a crystal, or I can get one resource out of the warehouse. The warehouse is actually up here, and in a 2-player game there are 8 of these resources. This represents stuff that has been shipped from Earth basically and is being held in orbit. So if I come here, I can grab any one of these and it'll immediately be shuttled down to the surface so I can make use of it in building. Although I can't build right now because I'm up in orbit. So I could do that, but I think I'm just going to go on ahead and take one of these crystals right here. Everybody starts with one. You can see I have a space to store 3 of them, and so I've got my second crystal. Although unfortunately, I don't get access to it right now. When I get it, it's raw and it has to be processed, so it comes down here, and at the beginning of my next turn, it'll come up here and be available for me. I need these Martian crystals, or Marcium it's called. The rules talk about how it's a new isotope that's been discovered on the planet. I need these to be able to do executive actions. At the beginning of the game, I've got these 3 actions, but over time, I can unlock more executive actions, which is the main use for these crystals. So anyway, I developed tech. I got a crystal, although I don't have it yet. And normally I'd be done with my turn, although if I wanted, once again, this reminds me that if I want to spend some dudes, I could grab some more tech. I could develop even more tech. But for now, I'm going to keep my guys at the ready because I'm probably going to want to use them down on the surface. So I didn't have to use anybody to start this. I could have pumped it up with more, but there's one more thing. Remember, we have an objective to develop tech. I just did, which means I got another crystal. Hooray! Although, again, I don't have access to it until my next turn. It's being processed right now. But I marked down that the first tech has been developed. 7 more, and one of the missions will be completed and will be that much closer to finishing the game. Alrighty. That was my turn. I'm done. Now, what else could I have done up here? Well, I could have spent a worker, and I could have used additional workers to be more powerful at upgrading my tech, which means I spend resources to move my tech further and further to levels 2, 3, 4, 5, or even 6. And as you might imagine, techs block other techs. If I want to move this here, but then I move this over here, then I can't upgrade this tech until this moves up. So there's kind of a little mini game of tech tree development. So coming here allows me for one worker to develop 2 technologies, to move 1 forward twice or 2 forward once. I could do that, and the other thing, which again does not require a worker, although the action can be buffed up, is I could grab some of the stuff from the warehouse and get it shuttled down onto the surface, where I would store it in these little silos right there. But my turn, it was very simple. I saw the objective, I went for it, I have developed some technology. My turn is over. Now, it's not quite. On your turn, you will do 1 main action, which is what you just saw me do. That's what all of these are. In addition to that, you can do 1 executive action, but the cheapest executive action requires 2 crystals, which could be like get something more out of the warehouse, or move my my building bots around, or do special advanced actions on buildings. I can't do any of those right now because I only have 1 crystal, so my turn is over. It is now Jen's turn. If I were over here and there was somebody else on this spot, they would go, but as it is, we move over here to nobody's in this spot, nobody's in this spot, nobody's in this spot, and here's Jen. It is her turn. And so what is she going to do on the surface? Well, as you might imagine, probably the most important stuff you can do is build up the colony. And again, this requires workers And it cannot be buffed up by additional workers like the ones you saw me doing up top. So Jen could spend one worker, one of her starting 3 colonists, and this is what she's going to do. She's going to start trying to build. Now, instead of that, she could upgrade an existing building using her blueprint. This blueprint says it needs a blue building, which is a water generating one, to get the private ship installed. Jen could go for that right off the bat, but she wants to build. The other stuff you can do is you can hire scientists who make your special upgraded buildings cheaper and more efficient to operate, or you can get contracts with Earth, which means if you can develop more of this stuff, you can actually send it back to Earth to get points. And let's see. Oh, also, you can invite new colonists to come to join your colony, or you can move your robots, your rover and your build bots around. So Jen could do any of these on the surface. She is going to build, which is what this symbol here means. So we look over here, and these are the 5 tiles. Jen could make a mine, a power station, a water generator, a food, greenhouse, or oxygen generators. Also, instead of building one of these, Jen has the option to build more housing for her own colonists. At the beginning of the game, we only have room for 4 colonists, but if Jen were to build this, you can see suddenly she's got room for 6 colonists instead of 4. And that could be a very, very handy thing. Plus, you get points at the end of the game for the more of these you've built. So Jen could go for that. And I'll be honest, that was what Jen was originally planning. She was going to right out of the gate build some more housing for her people, and then maybe invite some more people by getting one of these rockets to bring some more colonists and whatnot. But because I have developed advanced oxygen concentration technology, I think Jen is going to take advantage of that. Jen is going to change it up. Instead of building her original plan, Jen is going to build an oxygen plant. Okay, and it's interesting, this is one that not only will she build the plant, but she will discover some crystals lying around. You can see these are all shuffled up. If we tried to build a solar station, we'd find crystals. If we tried to build an oxygen plant, we'd find crystals. The next oxygen plant will not reveal any crystals. Alrighty, so Jen is going to build one of these. So there are 2 ways that we could build. We could make a completely new building. And to do that, the existing building has to be exactly 2 hexes away from a similar type of building that already exists. That's why there's already an oxygen, battery, water, etc., etc. So Jen could build this as a new building anywhere within 2 of it. Although she has another restriction. This is Jen's starting robot. This is the robot that would build this. Jen has to build either on the space where her robot is or adjacent. So if Jen wanted to, she could build an entirely new oxygen building right here. This is next to her building robot, and it's within 2 of the original ones, so you don't have to spread the tech out too far. And Jen would build that. And to do it, the cost would be 1 food. Just like the cost for a food module is water. The cost for water is power. Actually, this whole little system here indicates the ecosystem that our colony relies upon to function in Mars. We need to mine minerals to make power stations. We need that power to generate water. We need that water to grow our crops. We need that food to feed our people so that they can, we need the food to create oxygen out of CO2 so we can get our oxygen, and we need our oxygen to basically allow people to breathe so they can do some more mining. This is like a little self-contained loop here. So to build this, Jen needs to spend 1 food, which we started with 1 of each, so there it goes. And boom, this could be it. Jen would be done. However, the alternative is, instead of building an entirely new building devoted to whatever the system is, Jen can expand an existing building to become a complex. And that is a big, big step forward. But it requires technology. It requires no specific technology to make a new building. We could make individual little tiny oxygen places all over the place. But to expand an existing one requires technology. Technology that I just developed. If I hadn't gotten this tech, Jen would have to make a new building. But Jen can use my technology to expand an existing one, and that's what she's going to do. She's going to build it right here. This is next to her robot, so that's cool, and it's expanding this tile, which you wouldn't be able to do without my tech. But don't feel bad for me, folks, because I get a little something. Now, I built this so that I could come down to the planet and build my own oxygen complex. But now that Jen's doing it, I get a reward is whenever anybody uses one of your technologies, I immediately get 1 oxygen. It gets put up here, and at the end of Jen's turn, I will decide how I want to use it. So I get a little something. Jen doesn't pay it. It comes from the supply. So I'll come back at the end of Jen's turn to decide how I'm going to use that oxygen. But in the meantime, Jen she's paid her food. This is the space. And this reminds us that during the building, we surveyed the area and found 2 crystals, which we can send our rovers out to go pick up. Crystals, like I said, are hugely important to be able to do executive actions. But anyway, so it's built. We flip it over. Boom. It is done. Alrighty. And Jen's reward is for building a size 2 complex, Jen gets 2 oxygen. 1, 2. Although there's a problem. Jen already has 1 oxygen as part of setup. She gets to store 1 more, and the extra 1 is wasted. At the beginning of the game, the amount of individual resources we can store is equal to our little colony things plus 1. Each of us started with 1 habitat, which means we can hold 2 of any resource. This is why Jen was going to build another habitat. Not only would it let her have more colonists, it would let her store more resources. Jen only has 1, so she can store 2, and that means she wasted a little bit of air. But she's not done yet, folks, because over here is a reminder of how many times we have built power, water, food, or oxygen generators. And the more of these we build, the more successful the colony becomes. Now, Jen just built 1. It doesn't matter whether she built a standalone building, which would have been easier, or a complex, which is what she just did, which required technology. She's moved up 1, and as a reward, she immediately scores 2 victory points. Woohoo! This is just now that'll never happen again, because you see, you don't score bonus points for going higher and higher and higher. But there's more. Because all 4 of these are something that is required for the colony to go to the next level. Right now we have a level 1 colony. If all 3 of these get built, then this moves up and we become a level 2 colony. And then if they all get built again, we become a level 3 colony. And we could ultimately become a level 5 colony. Now that is an alternate way that the game could end. Remember I was saying if we finish all 3 missions, the game is over. Instead, if we become a level 5 colony, the game is over. And on the flip side, if we become a level 3 colony, suddenly we only have to do 2 missions. If we become a level 4 colony, we only have to complete 1 mission. So there's really 4 different mission objectives in this game. The 3 that were randomly chosen, and the 4th one, which is build. And Jen has started that building. Oops. So she's moving us 1 step closer to our target of a level 2. Now, whenever you contribute to moving to our target, we get a life support bonus. Which is over here. So Jen can take any one of these life support bonus. Crystal, a mineral, she can get another colonist, I'm sorry, not get another colonist, reclaim another colonist, or she can move her building robot around. Jen's going to take a mineral because minerals are the most valuable resource in the game because they're basically wild cards. They can stand in for anything else. And so now Jen has 2 minerals, which is very handy indeed. So, because Jen hit this, she gets this bonus. She also got the 2-point bonus, but she's not done yet. Whenever somebody creates or expands a complex of any of these types, they get to mark that they have done it the first time. This is the first time Jen has made or contributed to an oxygen complex. So she is the blue player. We put this marker over here to indicate that Jen has contributed. And as you can see, the more complexes of different types, mining and power and all that you contribute to, the more points you get. Not only at the end of the game, but at midway points of the game when we are evaluated as certain things happen. Which is basically to say when we go up to the next level. So Jen got this. And hey, what's this? Another reminder, here's why Jen did all this, because she has contributed to one of the missions. This mission over here, which is build complexes. Jen just contributed to a complex. Her bonus reward is an additional crystal, and we now only have to do 8 more complex additions to complete this particular mission. And so that and all of that because I did the technology. If I hadn't, Jen could have just gotten the 2 points, but she wouldn't have gotten any of this stuff because this is only from building complexes. Wow. And that should give you an idea of just one of the central elements of this game is players working in lockstep. Everything they do can benefit and impact what everybody else does. You saw me develop a tech, Jen used the tech, and I get a reward. Speaking of which, how am I going to use this? Jen's turn is over because even though on her turn, in addition to her main action, which was build, she could do executive actions. At the beginning of the game, we only have one crystal. So Jen won't be able to do any executive actions until next turn. So I could use this auction. I could either store it, and you can see I've got room to store one more, or I could spend it right now to increase either one of these technology levels. And the further along they go, the more points I get at the end of the game. So I could just bump this up here, and now we can make even bigger oxygen complexes. Because right now, as a level 1, this is as big as it gets. But we could make a bigger one, and so I could rush down to the surface, which is what I was originally planning on doing, and contribute. Or if I don't want to do that, let's say I leave this alone for now. Jen already kind of stole my thunder. I'm going to use the auction I got from her to increase my living quarter technology. And I can move it here, which would let me move my building robot around, and I could move it even further if I spent a crystal. Or I could move it here, which is what I'm going to do. That gets me a sweet, sweet mineral. Which remember, these are the wild cards. Oh, I think I have one left over from the last time I played. That was wrong. So I just got my second mineral, and now I could make an even bigger living quarter for myself, which is very, very handy. Okay, so that was a little bonus I got for Jen using my technology. She is done. And so the round is done. We have finished the first round of the game, but there's one more thing. After we do all of our colonization actions, you saw me get some tech, you saw Jen use that tech to build. Afterwards, the shuttle will move from orbit down to the surface, or if it was over here, from the surface up into orbit. And we have the opportunity to catch a ride right now. Now, Jen can't. She's already on the surface, so there's nothing happening with her. But I have to make a choice. Am I going to hop on and come down, ride the shuttle down, which means I won't be able to do orbit actions anymore. I'll be able to do land actions. And I will take this bonus and get some stuff from the warehouse, or I'll take this bonus and move my robot around. Or I would take this, which is no bonus, but it would guarantee me first place of everybody on the surface, but that's pointless. But if I ride down, I will get to do some additional actions along the way. So I got to ask myself, do I want to stay up here? Because I could earn some more technology. I could start leveling up my technology. I could get more stuff out of the warehouse, or I could get blueprints. I have no blueprints right now. And if I want to go down to the surface, maybe I want to grab some blueprints first so that I can upgrade all these buildings, because that's a great source of points and additional executive actions. Whenever you build one of these things, those become executive actions. Although, interestingly, they are executive actions that anybody can do. Potentially, when you get scientists involved. All kinds of crazy stuff going on in this game. But that's for later. For now, I will hop a ride on the shuttle. The shuttle comes down, and now, next time, it's ready to go back up. And I will choose to get a free resource of my choice from the warehouse that will also come down with me. I'm out of food. Let's just go on ahead and get this so I'm equally leveled up. And on the way down, a couple of things happened. One is we scan the surface. I can choose one of these two discoveries and put it somewhere on the surface of Mars. This is a free build one of your habitats. This is a free do a double tech upgrade. Since I've already started working on some tech, I think I'll take this. And now I have to put it exactly 3 spaces away from my Martian rover. Now, at the beginning of the game, our rovers haven't been deployed yet. And when they do get deployed, they will come out here at the center of the colony. So I have to put this within 3 of the center of the colony. I'll put it 1, 2, 3. And so that means now that I'm on the surface, I might want to deploy my rover to come over here, grab this crystal that showed up as part of Jen's building, and then keep on driving and get this discovery, as an example. And then once I'm there, I could keep on roving, get out here, and start making other discoveries, which would lead to more bonus upgrades for my technology. And I could just start really screaming up with the tech and getting all kinds of cool stuff. But anyway, so that was the scan I did on the way down. And then we revealed the next time there's going to be a scan. These are the 2 options. And if any of my folks on the surface were engaged in an activity, like if I'd been on the surface earlier and I had done a worker action, at this point, as I head back down, they would become available again and go back. Now, since this is the beginning of the game, I haven't been on the surface, so I haven't done any surface actions, but as I head down, I get to basically reset my surface workers, which is hugely important because you don't just get all your workers back at the end of every round like normal. A big part of getting your workers back is you traveling up and down from the surface to orbit or back. There's other ways as well, but man, there's just so much in this game. But anyway, I've made it down here, I got my resource, and that was the end of the first round. Now that we finished the shuttle, we're on to the second round. Both of us now are on the surface, but I will get to go first. If we were both in a race to do an action, like we both wanted to recruit the same scientist, because you can see they're all out here ready to go, I would get first dibs. But if I want to build now, I could go on ahead and have my first guy come over here, but I've got a problem. Because Jen has already built, if I want to build now, I have to spend extra resources. Jen was here first, she got in by herself. But now that there's somebody else, I have to pay an extra. I can either pay a crystal, which, oh, I forgot, by the way, at the beginning of my turn, these crystals became available. So if I want to build, I could spend one of these crystals to overcome the deficit of Jen already gotten there first, or I can have one of my guys help out, and now he's occupied in a workspace, which means, again, he will not become available until we start shuttling around, but that would allow me to build, saving my crystals. And if although I'm using up my workers. So if I don't want to do that, if I spend one of these crystals, then I could build, and I could go through the same process you saw Jen do, but maybe I'll start building my own little expansion, and because my technology is high, I can expand my existing, and my reward will be, since I'm building a level 2 crystals that I can add that I can pick up in the future round. So maybe that's what I'm going to do. I had to spend a crystal so I could build to get 2 crystals, plus now I've enhanced the amount of space I have to basically keep colonists at the ready, and I can now store more stuff. That's what I want to do, because there are so many other things I could do. Well, no, I can't do this because I do not have any blueprints. If I had a blueprint like Jen, I could pay a mineral to basically deploy this out to the appropriate building, and then I would have access to a new executive action that would join all the other ones. Or I could hire scientists, I could move my robots around. I was thinking about doing that, getting my rover out here to pick up this crystal and this reward. Maybe I want to do that. Or maybe I want to bring my first ship down, which will unlock another executive action, my choice, and will also allow me to get colonists to join me. So many options, but you know what, folks? I think I'm going to stop right there because that should give you a pretty good idea of the basic flow of On Mars. I've barely scratched the surface. I haven't really talked about the interplay between scientists and special buildings. I haven't upgraded any buildings yet. There is so much over the course of this game, and the biggest strength of this game by far is the interaction between players. You saw just a little snippet of it, that what players do gives opportunities to other players, and that really makes for a compelling experience. Although, folks, please remember, this is a paid preview, so take anything I say with a grain of salt. But in my experience, that's what really makes this game sing. Constantly being surprised. I thought I was going to do this, but now that you've done this other action, you've opened up a whole new thing for me to do that really changes my plans in a good way. And that is absolutely excellent. It's the biggest strength of On Mars. Now, issues I have with On Mars, certainly the biggest one is, like Lisboa before it, from the same designer, Vita Lasarda, I think this game is maybe just a little bit too heavy, a little too complex for Jen's in my case. It is overwhelming. It took me over a day of rules reading before I could even think about even trying to teach this game, let alone play it. Oh my gosh. I'm not saying Lisboa might be Vito's heaviest game, but if it is, this has got to be his second. It's crazy. And while it is fairly sandboxy, I will say that these particular missions that get randomly selected from a set every time you play, plus, I forgot to mention, everybody's own secret missions that they get as part of setup really can give you an overall strategy and a direction, which really helps with the sandboxy nature. Now, I will have one more complaint about the game, and it's a minor one. It might not bother people, but certainly one of the things Vita Lasarda is known for in his big, heavy, epic Euro designs is a great sense of verisimilitude, a great level of detail to the realities of whatever it is he's trying to emulate. And he's certainly done that here with the ecosystem and all that. I know he's done a lot of research, but there's one thing that sticks out. It's these crystals, which are practically magic. They feel more like science fiction instead of science fact. They do not feel. I don't remember in The Martian seeing him find crystals that were a new, exciting, heretofore unheard of resource. Personally, I would so much rather thematically these things just be funding from the UN. One of the main ways you get them is completing missions for the UN, so why don't you just get more funding? It's just a wild card that you can use for executive actions. Money would let you do executive actions and whatnot. If they appear out on the surface, that just means, the prospecting has revealed stuff that can be converted into credits, back on Earth. It's a minor thing. I suspect probably most players won't even mind, but when everything else is given so much love and attention in terms of thematic consistency, science fiction crystals made of marcinium, I believe is the name. It's practically unobtainium. Just kind of sticks out, and I'm really surprised. I've never seen anything like that. In Venios, there were no strange, out-of-this-world things. To be fair, Mars is off of this world. Maybe there will be something we find on the surface of Mars that can be a never-before-seen power, but I would have liked to see this a little bit more grounded, but otherwise, folks, this is fantastic. I said it up front, and I'll say it again. The most complex, rich, interwoven, and positively interactive Martian colonization simulation the board game industry has ever seen, and that's the rundown, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Have a very nice day. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye.